maybe one day we'll get to an ultimate draft show when we get there. But right now the Senior Bowl is going on down in Mobile. The Browns will have a first-round pick, so it's kind of changed a little bit how we look at the Senior Bowl and analyze some of the players. But G. Bush, I know you're in the lab constantly watching these guys. Bull, you're not as invested in the Senior Bowl as before. Jay, you said you watch it differently than before. So
I did watch it differently.
We have different perspectives from the panel. G, you want to start? What are your big takeaways from the Senior Bowl so far, even though the Browns don't have a pick?
I was looking at the receivers, from Georgia, Lad McConkey, and Roman Wilson from Michigan. Yep. Now, Roman Wilson, he been getting a lot of separation on these dudes.
He's pesky.
Yeah, he is.
I like him a lot.
He is.
But will he be around?
No.
I don't think so either.
No.
We'd have to trade up to get him.
And that's the thing that hurts a little bit, because when I'm looking at these positions and some of these receivers in the Senior Bowl, they're not around. They're not very really there. There's another guy that's really standing out too, is the kid from Toledo. They talking about this kid from Toledo being the first corner off the board. This guy, he's just a monster. Like, he plays press coverage, long, athletic. He's one of those corners that Seattle made famous, and he's from Toledo. He's going to be a first-round pick. You look at overall with the Senior Bowl, and another guy, Penix. Penix has been showing up. He has a strong arm. I thought his stock was going to drop a little bit. I just think that they couldn't do nothing with Michigan up front. Michigan just had a better game plan, better coached. But Penix is a guy that's moving up a little bit. A lot of people really like this next Blake Corum. A lot of people like Blake Corum. People have been saying, like, he's the typical Cleveland Browns type running back. He's not really a fast guy, but he's a dude that could break tackles. He got better feet than people thought, could catch the football a little bit, and he just always moves forward. So people like him as a goal line back. So Michigan is moving around doing their thing a little bit. For me, I hadn't really taken a look at the linemen. Because we got a stockpile. We got like 5 or 6 guys. We got to make a decision. But this guy from this edge rusher, Lelu Tutu or something, that's his name.
From UCLA.
This man, if I could have a first-round pick, boy, I would go get that man in a heartbeat. Now, this is an actual pass rusher, not none of them fake pass rushers. He got moves. He can bend, got good speed and explosion off the line. He's another dude that I've been watching a lot, too.
By the way, they for what it's worth, I just brought up CBS Sports' mock draft. They have 6 wide receivers going in the first round, including one guy you mentioned late in the first round, that Lad McConkey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They have him going 31st to the Chiefs.
Hey, his route running.
The Chiefs are another one that they need one.
They have
his route running is crazy.
That's the pain of not having a first-round pick, guys.
They have the Bills taking a wide receiver at 28. They have the Bengals taking a wide receiver.
Oh, that's interesting.
At 18, they have.
What is Boyd's situation?
He's a free agent.
He is a free agent, so it's possible, unlikely, but it is possible they lose both.
Yeah, my thought is, what I think ultimately is going to happen is they're gonna franchise tag T. Higgins and trade him, which means he wouldn't end up on the Browns because they wouldn't trade him to the Browns.
No, I wouldn't think.
I think that's what's going to end up happening.
Why wouldn't they just? Why would they? Why? I don't understand that.
Well, you can't trade him if he's not signed.
Right,
but why would they trade him?
Well, if they think they can get assets, more pieces.
Right. As opposed to just getting nothing.
So here's for example, we've seen this happen with wide receivers in the past, and we keep saying, wait a minute, why is Tennessee giving up on an all-world wide receiver? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
I think for a moment there was the thought in the NFL that, well, we'll just go draft the next guy. And I'm wondering, because that's been the thought at running back forever.
This is a little different in this situation because he's their number 2 wide receiver.
Why don't they just
franchise him twice? He will be someone's number 1, I believe.
Absolutely, yeah.
Why don't they just franchise him twice?
Well, I would.
That's what I would do.
I would, but what would the money be on a franchise tag for wide receiver for next year? It's big.
I think it's like 17, 18 million.
I was going to guess 20. Maybe I'm wrong.
Even if it is.
Just shy of, it was 19.75.
Yeah, that's where I would have guessed.
I could be wrong. They may just, the Bengals don't make a lot of trades.
What do you think about the new, is there a different philosophy in the Bengals regime? You follow them closer than we do. The mindset with the Bengals, going back to Carson Palmer, going back even before Carson Palmer.
Yeah.
They just didn't pay guys.
They just paid Burrow, though.
I know, well, Burrow is an exception.
Yeah.
Burrow is a generational player.
Yeah.
Had they not signed long-term Joe Burrow,
yeah, right, then.
Now, I'm wondering if the bean counters with the Bengals didn't say, look, we can do Burrow.
Yeah.
But we can't do Burrow and Higgins.
Well,
I don't know.
I think my feeling is they'll sign Chase to an extension, but not Higgins.
And
they
that's the
could
right
pay
move.
both, but I think they'll only pay Chase. And
I think that's
you know,
the way they
listen,
operate.
I can't. I for years I was super critical of the way the Bengals did business.
Yeah.
I still don't think it's perfect because I think ultimately they don't spend as much as they should. But they've made a lot of smart decisions in recent years.
They've got a lot of things
on
right.
letting guys walk. They've re-signed most of their important players. Now, I don't like letting Higgins go, but of Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, he's the least important of the three. And
Without
so
question.
ultimately, if you have to let one go, you let him go.
So-
but I don't love it.
So let me give you this, man. I always go.
And they think that they think they've drafted guys that could replace him.
Let me get to this. Like, I think I make the analogy, and we always talk about it. You know, there's superpowers in the world. First of all, it's only the United States, but then you got rivals like China and Russia, right? And so the United States spends billions and more than every other country combined. And people say we need to get rid of that military spending. What, we doing too much?
Well, not anymore. We're behind China, significantly behind China.
Well, here's the thing. When I read this thing, they said United States can win a war. Everybody in the world versus the United States. The United States could fight on every front.
How long ago was that?
I'm gonna send it to you. It's devastating.
Send it to me
I'ma
because
send
I
you.
read a terrifying report yesterday that was exactly the opposite of that.
It's a guy he is a special ops guy from the UK, and he said based upon his intel, because he's like
Yeah.
their version of
Like
Navy
what we
SEAL.
have
Yeah.
versus what other
Yes.
countries have.
Anyway.
And he was telling them like, yes,
yeah.
you go. So here's the reason. I'll get to my point.
Yeah.
The reason why the people should go out and make sure that they have weapons is not because it is like frugal or they just want their team to be better. It's the opportunity cost that other teams have. So if I have a quarterback and all things are equal, right? Other teams have great quarterbacks. Like, what is the domino effect of letting T. Higgins walk?
Yeah,
And
ultimately,
then
I
walk
think it would
right
be-
to the Browns and go to Deshaun Watson. You're like, well, hold on.
Again, I don't think I think if he goes, they're going to trade him. So I don't think he's going to end up on the Browns ultimately. I don't like the idea of them letting him go.
Well,
but
I love
get what you're
Bulls.
saying. It's a good point.
The Bulls' plan, though,
Yeah.
is playing chess and not checkers, and here's why. If you let T. Higgins hit the open market, he's coming to Cleveland.
Yeah, right.
Be sure of that. If you don't and you sign him, now you can trade him to Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
You can do whatever you want.
Right.
with
Go
him.
play for the Cardinals.
And there is value, obviously. There's strength by addition or subtraction by addition by subtraction. They would look at it as, we're not going to sign him. We're not going to keep him long term. We can't afford that. However, we don't want him showing up in Baltimore, Pittsburgh, or Cleveland. So we're going to sign him and we're going to send him where we want him
that's
to go.
better than letting him become a free agent. I still don't like it. I would
Yeah.
like them.
And it's
a
a game of chicken because
one of the,
what if Cleveland gives you the best offer?
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, I just think that in the end, what made the Bengals able, the only team that's been able to beat Mahomes, or the only active,
Quarterback.
active quarterback to beat Mahomes, part of it is Burrow. Obviously, he's a great player, but part of it is that they have Jamar Chase is one of the 3 or 4 best receivers in football, and then another guy who's top 15.
They're
They're one of the few teams that have that.
They lose
So-
a lot of mojo if Higgins
Yeah,
is not
yeah,
in a
yeah.
Bengals uniform.
Jay,
next
back
year.
to the topic at hand here. How have you watched the Senior Bowl this week?
So I was on the treadmill yesterday, and I thought there was something wrong with ESPN's feed because they were just letting that sound in. There was nobody talking over it,
That's weird.
which was
Did you like it?
interesting. What's that?
Did you enjoy that?
I learned more.
I was gonna say it kind of sounds good.
I learned more, and here's why. The portion that I was watching were the one-on-ones with offensive tackles and defensive ends. And you could hear the coaches and yelling the instructions at both of the players.
Oh, I love that.
It was fascinating, and I'm glad whoever's decision it was at ESPN to let that coverage breathe and not put Mel Kiper and Ryan Clark talking over it. It was a brilliant move. I would have watched more of it because I was learning more about each individual player. Now, the one thing that was missing was the context as to exactly who we were looking at. So I thought what they could have used was a traffic cop saying, okay, this is Alabama's left tackle and this is Texas A&M's defensive end, and give me some names. Because I was just looking at
Just looking at helmets.
helmets and
Yeah.
uniforms. And obviously, I'm not a college scout, and I'm not an NFL scout, so I don't know these names. I don't know. Now, many of them I would have recognized if I was told who they were. But it was really interesting. Now, the other way that I watched it differently is most years I was dialed in to this. Mm-hmm. And some years I was involved in the coverage, so I was really deep diving on all the college players that were out there. But because the Browns have such an insignificant pick, I can't invest like I used to. Like when it was the 1 or the 3 or the 5, man, I studied the draft as much as anybody.
Well,
but now I'm
yeah.
just like, hell, they're going to take 50th pick or whatever it is.
54.
54? Like, I
Yeah.
just can't get
For much of the
interested.
last, I'll say since I've been covering the team for 14 years, we were not only talking about the Senior Bowl and the Combine and the draft, we were talking about the draft in November. That's not an exaggeration.
No, that's
I mean,
true.
how many years have we talked Browns draft in November?
No, you're
because
right.
they had a first-round pick or many times multiple first-round picks, and they were awful, so there wasn't worth talking about the roster or the team currently. You're
And we
talking about
paid
the
more
draft.
attention to college football, too, to see what the quarterbacks were doing.
Absolutely. But now, as you say, now it could change if the Browns trade up.
Right.
We've talked about this. Greg Newsome could be a very interesting guy that they could combine with a pick to move up.
Aren't those trade-ups usually draft day or draft week?
Sure, often.
And then I would really dive
in
in.
the second round, in the second and third rounds, those trades usually happen during the round. But the first round trades happen if there's a massive one, maybe a couple weeks.
Yeah,
before
I mean, the
draft.
Browns aren't trading
Well,
up to a
here's-
top 10 pick.
No, they'd have to give up too much. But
Yeah.
I think they could trade up to get into the end of the first round.
Sure.
And you'd have to give up picks, and they would be second and third rounders. But
Right.
gosh, I just watch it differently. I'm not as into
not
the
as
draft
often because you know that the players being focused on are guys that are probably not going to end up on the Browns.
Exactly.
You're at a different point in your life, though.
Yeah.
Like the life process of the Cleveland Browns is when we were all 99 came up, we trying to figure it out. We trying to put some studs and foundation pieces. We just trying to hit it right. We just trying to make sure we can get a guy that can play. Now we whiff on those guys, and you get to a point where you say, okay, let's mortgage some of these picks because we ain't good at them anyway to get guys that we can play right now. It's what happens when you get a Watson. What happens when you want to go out and get Amari Cooper and guys like that. But now you're at a position in your life where it's like, am I going to go home and play video games for 10 hours? No, I ain't got the time to do it. The Browns ain't got the time to be talking about no third and fourth round picks. Like, fans ain't excited about those guys. And if you look at the track record of it, third and fourth round guys are third and fourth round guys. You can't depend on those guys to come in a fourth rounder
But the
and
good
change
teams,
the world.
the good teams will have a bunch of guys in those rounds that are good players, that play above their draft position.
At certain positions. I think the Browns do a good job at defensive
And the
backs.
Browns have done that at certain positions.
And
Yeah.
defensive
DeWan,
back.
Emerson. just to name a few.
But that receiver game, they need to go to
I
a
hope
camp.
in the past year the organization has done a deep dive on what attributes they prioritized at wide receiver.
Because I can't tell.
They got them wrong. And I had a draft expert tell me they've closely looked at the last 3 wide receivers the Browns have drafted. And here's what his takeaway was. Jay, they weren't A+ in anything. Now,
Right.
granted, they weren't first and second
Right.
rounders, but he said you can get
Right.
somebody that does something extremely
Elite.
well. And what he said is, of the 4 classes that we put on wide receivers with speed, hands, route running, and toughness, ability to go over the middle, he's like, they didn't draft any of the 4 except for Anthony Schwartz that was above average in any of those 4 categories.
And he was above. He had elite speed.
He had speed. That was the only thing he had.
But F hands.
You're right. So what his takeaway was, and that's not me saying that, that's an NFL scout who told me, Jay, however it is that the Browns are prioritizing the attributes that you needed to make a wide receiver great, they need to go back to the drawing board there because they've missed consistently in the same way.
Yeah, it's
By the way, the Browns, you may remember, had 5 first-round picks between 2017 and 2018. They had 5 in 2 years. Wow. They took Myles Garrett, Jabril Peppers, David Njoku, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward. 2017.
3 of the 5 are still here.
Yes. Since then, it's been 5 years, 2019 to 2023. There's been 5 drafts. Browns have had 2 first-round picks in their last 5 years. Jedrick Wills and Greg Newsome.
Crazy.
Well, that's the price
it.
of being better.
In fact, the last 2 years, I forgot in 2020, the Browns have not even drafted. Their highest draft pick in the last 2 years is 3rd round.
Yeah.
They traded out of the 2nd round last year, of course. Their highest draft pick since Greg Newsome in 2021 was Martin Emerson 2 years ago at 68. So they have not taken a player before 68 in the last 2 years.
Well, 68's the 3rd round.
That's right.
Yeah.
So they haven't drafted 1st or 2nd round.
What's the deal, man?
And they won't this year either. They'll have a late 2nd round draft.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? One of Andrew Berry's tactics is to move down.
Yes.
He's done it. He's done it enough.
Yeah.
I just hope they reevaluate how you value wide receivers.
No doubt.
What you've done has put this franchise in a miserable hole.
Well,
They've got
tomorrow,
to get out of it.